Hello everybody, my name is Rachelle, and today we're going to be doing pumpkin gnocchi. So how many of you guys have made gnocchi before? Oh, a few, cool, awesome. So gnocchi is really easy. It's kind of like a foolproof thing other than the fact if you overmix it. So it kind of becomes nice and gummy, which is not ideal. But before that, we're going to kind of get our bacon going for the dish. So candied bacon is really easy to do. I just have bacon lined up on a sheet tray, and then essentially we're just going to add some brown sugar to that. And if you like things like a little spicier, you can add like some red pepper flakes or some more black pepper to it. We're just going to kind of keep it basic with the brown sugar, and this lightly coats the bacon and kind of gets a nice caramelized texture to it. You get a nice sweet and salty aspect to it, which, I mean, who doesn't like sweet and salty bacon? And this is really easy, you know, just rub the brown sugar on it, and then we'll bake this at 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes. Nothing too crazy. It's one of those nice things you get to just pop in the oven, not worry about, and pull out, and it's all nice and good. So do that. And then for the gnocchi, the fun part, right? So right here I have the ricotta. You can use whichever ricotta you like. I like to use whole milk ricotta. It kind of holds up a little nicer. And the nice thing about gnocchi is you kind of just throw everything into a bowl, mix it all together, roll it out, and you're done. Nice and easy. You know, nice little weeknight dinner. So I have 16 ounces of ricotta. I've got 3 ounces of pumpkin puree. And honestly, you can really flavor the gnocchi whichever way you like. So today we're just doing pumpkin. You could easily substitute this for like butternut squash puree or pea puree. Any type of vegetable will do really well in this. So we're going to mix that together. You kind of see the ricotta, the pumpkin mixing together. And then this is the part where you can really like mix this as much as you like. Once you start to add in the flour, that's when you're kind of like, okay, you kind of want to hold back on the mixing. You don't want it to get too gummy. So next we'll add in our 3 eggs. So just whole eggs. And then if anybody has any questions throughout this, feel free to ask them. I won't bite you. So we got that in. And then next I'm going to add in grated parm. And I like to use a dry grated parm. I've noticed that if you use stuff that's more wet, the gnocchi kind of just, it doesn't work as well, so I definitely recommend going dry grated if possible. Obviously it's not the end of the world if it's not. You'll just have to add a tiny bit more flour to incorporate. So that's kind of what it looks like before the flour. Everything's nicely incorporated. The Parmesan, the egg yolks, the ricotta, and the pumpkin puree. And then next, you can just dump this all in. It really does not matter. Once you kind of mix everything together, it'll all incorporate nicely. And then once you kind of get to this point where it's kind of like holding its shape, sticking to itself, I like to turn it out onto the table. And then this is kind of when we'll start to incorporate with our hands. So this is the part you kind of have to be a little careful. You don't want to add too much flour. The dough is naturally going to be a little bit more wet, which also helps it with not being too gummy. And then for this recipe, you'll do about 2.5 cups, and then you'll do flour as you need it. So kind of just incorporating that. And this is also like a great thing to do for like a family dinner night, or like if you have grandkids, you can have them over. This is like a fun little interactive thing. You know, everybody gets a little dirty. Kind of just keep incorporating that flour. And then, so today we're going to be serving this with a maple ricotta, which again, that's like something super simple. You can kind of do any flavor you would like. We kind of just take whole ricotta milk, and then we take it into a food processor and add some maple syrup to it and blend it till it's really nice and smooth. You could easily add in any, lemon juice, herbs, whatever you would like to kind of impart the flavor you're looking for. I feel like the maple syrup kind of goes really nice with that sweet and salty bacon and then the notes of the pumpkin and the gnocchi. So now everything's kind of coming together. I'm going to kind of just knead it all. You don't want to over mix it, so kind of just once it's all slightly coming together. All right. So this is starting to come together. It's about there. And then I don't want to add too much flour now because as you're rolling it out, you're going to use more flour, so you don't want to make it too gummy. This is the part where your hands get nice and all goopy. And then I found a bench scraper works really, really well for doing gnocchi. So we'll kind of get rid of all of that excess flour. All right, so now we have our nice little gnocchi roll. Wasn't too bad, right? Ricotta, egg, flour, cheese, all mixed together. And then you'll kind of work in little portions. So I just cut off a little piece and then I'll kind of just slowly roll it. This is going back to like those Play-Doh days. You're playing with Play-Doh, you're rolling it all out. You're trying to make those long little snakes kind of thing. So you add a tiny bit of flour. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure. So the dough is naturally just kind of stretching, rolling itself out. And you can kind of do whatever thickness you like. So I kind of like to go a little skinnier. So I'll kind of cut it in half. And then you're kind of left with this like little snake looking shape. So once you have that guy, I've got two of them, kind of line them up together. And then you'll just take a bench scraper, you can take a knife, you can take essentially anything that will cut into dough. I like to use my fingertips, so like a finger length, if you can see. I'll come up here. So I've got them all nicely lined up. I'll take my fingertips and then I'll kind of just move side by side just like that. And then you have these nice little gnocchi shapes. Obviously, some people leave them like this. You can take a fork if you want to get a little fancy and rub it down the fork. You'll put a nice groove into it. Honestly, once you boil the pasta, the fork lines go away, so it doesn't really matter, to be completely honest with you. But if you're feeling fancy, go ahead and do it. I definitely suggest it. It's fun to do. So yeah, that's pretty much gnocchi. And like I said, you'll kind of just keep rolling it out, working that dough. And at this point, I've kind of got enough flour left over on my surface where I don't really need to add too much more. This bacon smells amazing, by the way. Yeah, so I work at Rude, and we have a rotating gnocchi dish on the menu. So, for the fall time, we ran this pumpkin gnocchi, which is nice. It's really simple to do. I'm sure most of you have a can of pureed pumpkin at home. You can just use that for the recipe. And then come springtime, we like to do a spring onion gnocchi. So instead of the pumpkin puree, we just take some nice fresh spring onions and then puree that into the ricotta mixture. And you have a super, super elegant, nicely, super fragrant gnocchi. And we like to serve that with asparagus, which goes really well together. So super interchangeable, a lot of different things you could do. If you'd like to just do a plain gnocchi, you can also leave out the pumpkin puree and then just do a little less flour. Any questions so far? Cool. Yeah, of course. So easily swap out. You can use gluten-free flour. I like to use hazelnut or chestnut flour. Works really well for the gnocchi. And then even if you're trying to go vegan, and almond ricotta works super well as well. All right, so let's take a look at that bacon, see how it's doing. So as you can see, the brown sugar is kind of starting to melt and everything. It's creating a nice little coating over top of it. The bacon's starting to cook up, and this is good. Okay, so in this pan right here, I have some brown butter, and essentially to make brown butter, all you have to do is put a stick of butter in a pan and then let it slowly heat up. Once all of the milk fat solids go to the bottom, then it'll naturally start to brown, and then that's when you take it off the burner right before it kind of gets black, and then you have this beautiful nutty, almondy flavored butter, and it's absolutely incredible. All right, so we'll do this last little portion here. Yeah.
Will you still get the nutty flavor if you just use plain butter and let it cook down, and then when it starts to turn brown? You were talking about a nutty almond flavor. Does that turn into a nutty almond flavor?
Yeah.
You use almond butter.
So naturally, as the butter loses those milk fat solids and it gets darker, it naturally gets like these nice golden notes and flavors to it. So it naturally occurs once it caramelizes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get the nice nuttiness flavor to it. It's really, really good. Yeah.
Salted or unsalted?
I prefer unsalted, hands down, every day. Salted gets a little tricky because you can't really control as much salt intake. So it's you go to salt things and you're like, oh wow, this is really salty, So I definitely prefer unsalted butter.
Do you ever use Irish cream butter?
Yes, yeah. It's amazing. Yes, it is amazing. If you do have that, I would definitely recommend using that over, traditional butter. Even grass-fed butter is amazing. Use your butter, your choice. So honestly, today's recipe, we're not using any oil at all. This is just going to be butter, and you'll get the nice flavor from the butter. You don't really need the oil, which is nice. Yeah.
Ray, can you use the canned pumpkin?
So at the restaurant, we actually make our own purees, but you can definitely use canned. That's perfectly fine. It's very easy route to go, definitely. All right, so we've got our gnocchi all ready to go. I've got a nice pot of boiling water over here. And the nice thing when you're doing any type of like fresh pasta or fresh gnocchi, it cooks insanely fast. That's honestly why I love doing it. It's really nice pickup time, works out really well. And essentially, so whenever you're doing these, once it kind of starts floating, they're ready to go. And today I'm gonna be searing it off. So I'm gonna boil it and then come and sear it. You don't have to sear it if you don't like to. I just like it for the crunchy exterior, and then you get the nice inside, to it. But it's really just personal preference. You can easily do it without searing it. You could do like a tomato sauce if you want to do it traditional, and then just kind of throw it into that tomato sauce. Gnocchi is super, super universal. Lots of different things you can do with it. And then, so this is a ricotta-based gnocchi, which I kind of like a little bit more. Potato gnocchi is a little bit more traditional, but it ends up being like a little bit denser in my opinion. And it's a little more technical. You have to like boil the potatoes and work it while it's hot, which you end up burning your hands. So it's not a fun task to do. So that's why I really love ricotta gnocchi instead. So we're gonna kind of just drop those in there. Yeah. Honestly, I would not recommend using that. I would stick to like all-purpose, or self-rising is going to make the dough a little bit more gummy, and it's not the best fit for gnocchi. So I would definitely stick with all-purpose. You could definitely interchange with almond flour, gluten-free flour, chestnut flour, anything like that. I would definitely stay away from like high gluten flour, self-rising flour, things like that. I think salting your water is like one of the most important things. Yeah. It just helps add that natural saltiness to whatever you're cooking, especially like things like pasta. So where I learned to make gnocchi, I studied abroad in Italy for about 2 years. I'm 24, so I went there when I was 18, and I lived in this small little town called Orvieto, and it's up on this big hill, super, super cool. I worked for this Italian lad named Lorenzo, and he pretty much taught me anything and everything I know about Italian cooking, pasta, gnocchi, everything. So I was super incredibly blessed to go and do that, and I kind of, tried to take all of that learning back here and, teach as many people as I could and, things like that.
Any oil in your water, or is that just salt?
Just salt, yep, just salt and water. Mm-hmm. So now we're gonna get this all. So we've got some brown butter going in this pan. I'm gonna add a little bit more. And again, you can see this color of the butter. I have some nice browns at the bottom, and then the color is different too. So this is just sitting on a burner. This is about a pound of butter, just low and slow. So it'll eventually fall to the bottom, and then that's when you just strain it out and you're all set. So some of our gnocchi are starting to float. I'm gonna kind of just give it a nice little stir. You can see that's kind of what they start to look like as they form. Got our brown butter melting. It's looking really good. Any other questions so far? You guys have a lot of questions. Good questions too.
It's okay to crowd the gnocchi?
Yes, yeah. So the gnocchi, as long as you give it a nice little stir, it'll be fine. Because you cut it in those nice little chunks, as long as your water's boiling, you'll have no issue with it sticking. So you can kind of see like everything's starting to come to the top, and that's the fun thing. Like you have a whole bunch of little different shapes, and that's why I love doing this with like little kids and stuff. They love it.
Is there any reason why you're not open for lunch?
Oh, yeah. So we are actually open for lunch Friday and Saturdays. So you can kind of see that starting to get a nice little caramelized texture to it. But yeah, right now we're open Friday and Saturday. We used to be open during the week, but it's a little slow in the wintertime right now, so we're kind of cutting back the hours for that. But you can definitely come in and try all of our goodies. I would love for you to. So yeah, I've got a lot of gnocchi over here that's starting to float. I'm gonna take my pan. I've got the brown butter all nice and melted, so I'll just kind of put that in there. This is where you're gonna get a nice sear on that. I'm gonna add a little bit more butter because I feel like who doesn't love butter, right? Butter, bacon, gnocchi. Gonna fatten you guys up today. And brown butter is one of those things that you can definitely make ahead of time and just kind of store in your fridge and use whenever you'd like. I definitely love having that on hand. But yeah, so you'll just kind of sear it in the brown butter, and then we've got some walnuts that I like to add and get a nice toastiness to it. And then we're also gonna add some sage. You can check on the bacon in the meantime. Yeah, so this is just about done. Kind of see it's nice and caramelized. Got the brown sugar all over there. And honestly, with this stuff, you can kind of leave it as big or as small as you would like. So you can kind of chop it up into really small pieces if you wish, or I like to eat them whole sometimes. They're really good.
Can you use it bacon in the microwave?
Honestly, I have not tried that. So I would not recommend it, to be completely honest. I'm sure it would it's not the best option to go about, but you could definitely pan-sear it if you want. You know, get it to where it's almost cooked all the way through, and then add your brown sugar on top of that and let it slowly bake that way. Yeah, I don't know if I would microwave it. So we actually get our bacon from a local butcher shop, but I recommend like any thick cut bacon is best for this. I'm using too many burners over here, guys. Any questions? Any other? It can be about anything. If you have any cooking questions or anything. Instead of pumpkin? Yeah, so I really like spring onion. That's one that we do in the spring. That one's incredible. You can just take green onions, take ricotta. If you have a food processor or a blender, you know, you can just add that right into the blender, puree it all until it's a nice, vibrant green color, and essentially do the exact same thing that I just did. And you'll have a nice earthy, like oniony taste to it. That's probably one of my personal favorites. I do really like butternut squash. I also really like doing just like a cheese-based gnocchi. So today we did just Parmesan, where you can interchange it with any type of cheese you like. You can add a little bit more, and then you can even do a little less ricotta. So honestly, the recipe is very like give and take. You can pretty much do anything you would like and kind of substitute whatever. So I don't know, I would have to probably go spring onion on that one. Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, definitely. All right, we're back in business. Okay, so I have the gnocchi in here after it's been boiling. We got the nice melted brown butter. It smells amazing. Can you smell it over there yet? Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of let this come back up to temp quick. It's gonna create a nice little crusty exterior, and then the inside's still like nice and soft and chewy. And then like I said, this is super interchangeable. So today we're doing a maple ricotta with it, but you can honestly do whatever type of sauce you're feeling. If you just wanna throw it into a tomato sauce, you know, you can easily throw it into that. If you're doing like an Alfredo, super, super interchangeable. So I'm gonna add, do we have any nut allergies? Everybody's good? Cool. So we're gonna add in some walnuts. And then I like to add this in about halfway through, so the brown butter and the walnuts kind of marry together and they get that nice toastiness to it. And then also got some sage, which crisps up really nice in brown butter, and it adds a nice little fragrance to the gnocchi as well. And you can pretty much do whatever herbs you have on hand. If you have thyme, you know, rosemary. Honestly, anything that's nice and fragrant and earthy will do really, really well with this dish. And honestly, too, this is one of those things that you can easily make ahead of time. Gnocchi freezes incredibly well. So if you're doing like a dinner party and you want to do gnocchi, you can easily make this the night before, freeze it, and then you can do the same method. Boil it. Once it comes to the surface, it's ready to go. How can you preserve sage? Yeah, so honestly, what I've been doing lately is I take the whole bundle of sage and then tie some twine around the stems of it, and then just hang it wherever you have, space, and then it'll naturally start to dry out after probably like 2 to 3 weeks. You should be good, and then it'll have that nice dry texture to it, and then you could either pulse it, leave it whole, or do whatever you please with it, and then you have sage ready to go on hand. You can honestly do that with any herb too. Yeah, so everything's kind of coming really nice together. Starting to get a nice little coating on some of this gnocchi.
How do you know when it's done?
So honestly, once it's floating in the pan, it's really ready to go. We're just searing it right now just to get that extra crust on it. This isn't a step you have to do. You can just go, straight from the pot to the pan or to your plate. I just like to add a nice little texture to the gnocchi. Yeah, it gets a nice little extra crust on it. But yeah, this is looking good. It's about ready. I do a little taste test first. It's really hot. Really good though. So over here I already have like some of the maple ricotta and some of the candied bacon already cut up. And then we'll put the gnocchi on top of that with a little bit of nuts and everything for you guys to try. Like I said, it's gnocchi, it's one of those really easy, simple dishes to do. It's really fun to do if you have like a group of people. I have 4 younger brothers and I always love doing this with them. It's, something fun, interactive to do. And honestly, who doesn't love gnocchi? Like I said, the gnocchi, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. If you want to do bigger portions, that's completely fine. It'll just take a little bit longer to boil. Gnocchi for everybody. There's that for you. Yeah, of course. There's some for you guys to try. Yeah. And even the bacon you can do ahead of time, chop up, have ready to go in your, refrigerator. Honestly, everything is super easy to do ahead of time. That's why I love it. It's really easy to do for a pickup, nothing too crazy. You do not, no, okay. No. You can honestly use skim, whatever, 2%. Okay. Yeah, anything works fine. Even if you wanted to use almond ricotta or, cashew ricotta, all of that works the same. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so just ricotta cheese. You take ricotta cheese and maple syrup into, you could take a blender, a food processor, whatever you have. Even if you don't have any of those, take a whisk, really whisk it good, and you'll have the same, definitely. So what did you guys think? Do you like it? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for, coming and watching and learning how to make gnocchi. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'm sure you can get in contact and I'll feel free to answer any questions you guys may have or anything like that. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.